In the Nakamura family, birth order determined everything. My brother Ethan was born first, and in our Japanese-American household that valued tradition, that made him the crown prince. I arrived 3 years later, Yuki, the daughter, the afterthought. Our grandfather, Hiroshi Nakamura, had come to America from Osaka in 1968 with almost nothing. He'd worked construction jobs during the day and went to community college at night, eventually becoming a licensed contractor. By the 1980s, he'd saved enough to start buying houses in Phoenix during the savings and loan crisis, when prices crashed. He'd buy distressed properties, renovate them himself, and rent them out. Over 30 years, he built a portfolio of 10 single-family homes scattered across Phoenix and Tempe. Nothing fancy, modest 3-bedroom houses in working-class neighborhoods, but solid investments that generated steady income. By 2015, when I graduated high school, Grandpa owned the 10 properties free and clear. Portfolio value: approximately $2.4 million. Monthly rental income: $18,500. Grandpa was 75 and slowing down. The physical work of managing 10 properties was getting harder. He needed help. Ethan volunteered immediately. He was 21, working sporadically as a personal trainer, living at home rent-free. "I'll manage the properties, Grandpa," he announced at a family dinner. "It's time I stepped up for the family business." Mom beamed. Dad clapped Ethan on the shoulder. Grandpa looked skeptical, but agreed to try it. I was starting college at Arizona State, studying finance and accounting. I'd offered to help Grandpa with the bookkeeping. I'd already been organizing his tax documents for 2 years. But when Ethan took over, everyone assumed he'd handle everything. "Ethan needs to learn the business," Mom said when I asked if I could still help. "Let him manage it his way." So I focused on school while Ethan became the official property manager. Grandpa paid him $2,500 a month, which seemed generous for what should have been part-time work. At first, everything seemed fine. Ethan would show up to family dinners talking about tenant issues and repairs. He'd text me photos of rent checks deposited. The numbers looked reasonable, but I noticed small things. Grandpa's property tax payment was late 1 year, unusual for a man who'd never missed a deadline in his life. A tenant called me directly once asking about a repair Ethan had promised, but never scheduled. When I mentioned it to Ethan, he got defensive. "I'm handling it," he snapped. "Stop micromanaging me." The real warning came in 2017. Grandpa asked me to review his financial statements because something felt off. "The rental income seems low," he said quietly. "But Ethan says the market is soft." That didn't make sense. Phoenix's rental market was booming. I was studying real estate finance at ASU. I knew the numbers. I asked Ethan for the full accounting records. He gave me a shoebox full of crumpled receipts and barely legible notes. No organized spreadsheets, no clear tracking, nothing that would pass even a basic accounting class. I spent 3 weeks rebuilding the books from scratch, cross-referencing bank statements, tracking deposits, analyzing expenses. The picture that emerged made me sick to my stomach. Ethan was collecting approximately $18,500 in monthly rent from the 10 properties. But he was only depositing about $13,000 into Grandpa's account. The missing $5,500 per month was vanishing. That's $66,000 a year. Over the 2 years he'd been managing, approximately $132,000 was unaccounted for. I brought my findings to Grandpa. We sat in his small office, the one where he'd built his entire business through meticulous record-keeping and honest work, and I showed him the evidence. His face got harder and harder as I explained. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "You're certain?" he finally asked in Japanese. He always switched languages when he was deeply upset. "Hi," I replied. "But I need access to Ethan's personal bank accounts to prove where the money went. Right now, I can only prove it's missing." Grandpa made a decision that day that would change everything. "I'm transferring the properties to you," he said. "All 10 of them. Through a trust that executes immediately." "Grandpa, no. Ethan is the firstborn son. The family will." "The family," he interrupted, his voice firm, "will understand that I leave my legacy to the person who has integrity, not the person who steals from an old man." We met with his attorney, Catherine Rodriguez, the next week. She was sharp, thorough, and asked hard questions. When I showed her my analysis of the missing funds, her expression went cold. "We should report this to the police," Catherine said. "Not yet," Grandpa said. "First, we secure the properties. Then we watch and document. I want to know exactly how much he steals and how long he'll continue." The irrevocable trust was established in September 2018. All 10 properties transferred to me immediately. County deeds filed. Everything legal, binding, irrevocable. I became the owner of a $2.4 million real estate portfolio at age 21. But nobody knew except Grandpa, Catherine, and me. Ethan continued managing the properties, believing he was building toward an inheritance. And he continued stealing. Over the next 6 years, I documented everything. I hired a forensic accountant to track every missing payment. I interviewed tenants who confirmed they paid full rent to Ethan every month. I gathered bank records showing deposits into Ethan's personal account that coincided with rent collection dates. By December 2024, Ethan had stolen approximately $427,000 from what he thought was Grandpa's estate, but was actually my property. And I had evidence of every single dollar. From 2018 to 2024, I lived a strange double existence. Publicly, I was Yuki Nakamura, recent college graduate working as a junior financial analyst at a mid-sized firm in Scottsdale. I made $64,000 a year, lived in a modest apartment near ASU, drove a 6-year-old Toyota Corolla. To my family, I was doing fine, respectable job, stable life. Nothing remarkable. Privately, I owned 10 rental properties worth $2.4 million, generating $18,500 in monthly rent. Well, I own them on paper. Ethan still managed them and stole roughly $6,000 to $7,000 each month while depositing the remainder into an account I controlled. It was surreal. Every month, money that was legally mine would flow through Ethan's hands. He'd steal a portion, deposit the rest, and I'd document the entire transaction through my forensic accountant. Why didn't I stop him immediately? Because Grandpa wanted the complete picture. "Let him show us who he really is," Grandpa said. "The longer he steals, the more undeniable the evidence becomes." So I watched, and built, and prepared. The money Ethan did deposit, about $11,000 to $12,000 monthly, I reinvested carefully. I paid down the property taxes, which Ethan often neglected. I funded necessary repairs that Ethan claimed to handle but didn't. I built a reserve fund for major maintenance. And I quietly upgraded the properties. Using my own salary and the legitimate rental income, I renovated 5 of the 10 houses over 6 years. Updated kitchens, new flooring, modern appliances, fresh paint. Nothing flashy, but quality work that increased values and allowed for higher rents. By 2024, the portfolio was worth $3.6 million. Monthly rental income had increased to $22,000. After legitimate expenses, the properties netted $185,000 annually. All of it legally mine. None of it known to my family. Ethan, meanwhile, was living like a king. He'd bought a new Ford F-150 truck, $68,000. He'd moved into a luxury apartment in Scottsdale, $2,800 a month. He posted constantly on Instagram about gym memberships, golf outings, bottle service at clubs, weekend trips to Vegas and San Diego. Everyone thought he was successful. A thriving property manager building his real estate empire. I knew the truth. He was a thief funding a lifestyle with stolen money. At family dinners, Ethan would hold court about his properties and his business decisions. Mom and Dad would listen in awe. Nobody asked me about my work. Accounting wasn't as exciting as real estate management. I'd sit quietly, eating my food, saying little. The invisible daughter, as always. Grandpa would catch my eye across the table sometimes. A slight nod. A small smile. We both knew the truth, and we were both waiting for the right moment. That moment came when Grandpa's health started failing in late 2023. He'd had a small stroke, recovered well, but it was a wake-up call. He was 84. Time was finite. I want to see this resolved before I die, Grandpa told me in January 2024. I want to watch Ethan's face when he learns the truth. We started planning. Catherine prepared all the legal documentation, the trust papers, the property deeds, the forensic accounting reports. Everything organized and ready to present. The total documented theft by March 2024, $427,000 over 76 months. In November 2024, Mom called me. We need to have a family dinner, she said. Your father and I want to discuss Grandpa's estate planning with everyone. My stomach clenched. When? This Sunday. Don't miss it. It's important. I immediately called Catherine. It's happening. This Sunday. Can you be ready? I've been ready for 6 years, Catherine said. I'll bring everything. Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Phoenix was tense from the moment I walked in. Mom had cooked Japanese food, her specialty, meant to honor Grandpa. The table was set formally. Everyone was there: Mom, Dad, Ethan, Grandpa, and my younger sister Maya, who was still in high school. We made awkward small talk through the first course. Then Dad cleared his throat. We asked everyone here because we need to discuss something important, he said formally. Grandpa's getting older. It's time to talk about the future of the rental properties. Here it comes, I thought. Ethan sat up straighter, his expression serious, but with an undercurrent of satisfaction. He'd been waiting for this moment for years. Mom smiled at Ethan. Your brother has been managing the properties for 7 years now. He's done an excellent job. We think it's time to make the transition official. I've managed these 10 Arizona rentals for 7 years, Ethan announced, his voice confident and proud. They're rightfully mine now. He looked directly at me as he said it. Not at Grandpa, who actually owned them, or thought he did. At me, making sure I understood my place in the family hierarchy. Mom added her support immediately. He's earned it. Dad nodded in agreement. Maya looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Grandpa sat perfectly still, his face unreadable. I smiled politely and asked a simple question. Show me the rental receipts from 2019 to 2024. The room went quiet. Ethan's confident expression flickered slightly. What? He said. The rental receipts, I repeated calmly. If you've been managing the properties for 7 years, you should have detailed records. Monthly rent collected from each property, deposited into Grandpa's account. I'd like to see them. Ethan's face flushed red. I don't need to prove anything to you. I've been doing this for years while you were busy with your little accounting job. I don't need to prove anything to you, he laughed, but there was an edge to it now. Yuki, that's rude, Mom said sharply. Your brother has been working hard. We don't need to interrogate him. I'm not interrogating, I said mildly. I'm asking to see basic business records. Any legitimate property manager would have them. Ethan stood up, his chair scraping loudly. This is insulting. I've spent 7 years building this business and you what? You think you can just question my work? I think, I said quietly, that anyone claiming to have earned a $3.6 million inheritance should be able to show receipts. The number, $3.6 million, made everyone pause. That was higher than the last valuation they'd heard. The properties have appreciated, I continued. Current market value is approximately $3.6 million. If Ethan's been managing them as well as he claims, he should have detailed documentation of rental income, expenses, repairs, everything. Ethan's jaw worked. Those records are private business information. Nothing about Grandpa's properties is private from Grandpa, I interrupted. So show us. Show everyone the rental receipts. Prove you've been depositing full rent every month. Yuki, enough, Dad said angrily. What's gotten into you? The truth, I said simply. I pulled out my phone and sent a text. Come in now. 30 seconds later, the doorbell rang. Mom stood up, annoyed. Who is that? My guest, I said, walking to the door. Catherine Rodriguez stood on the porch in a perfectly tailored navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind her was David Chen, the forensic accountant I'd been working with for 6 years. Good evening, Catherine said pleasantly. I apologize for the interruption. I'm Catherine Rodriguez, estate attorney for the Nakamura Family Trust. I stepped aside. They walked into the dining room where my family sat frozen. Catherine set her briefcase on the sideboard. David did the same. The estate lawyer cleared his throat. SIR, your sister has been the legal owner since 2018, and we've documented. Ethan's fork dropped from his hand and clattered against his plate. What is this? Ethan demanded, his voice too loud.
Who are these people?
As I mentioned, Catherine said calmly, I'm the estate attorney for the Nakamura Family Trust. I drafted the irrevocable trust that transferred all 10 rental properties to Yuki Nakamura in September 2018. The room exploded into chaos. That's impossible, Ethan shouted. What trust? Mom demanded. Dad stared at Grandpa. You wouldn't. Grandpa spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but firm. I would. And I did. Catherine pulled documents from her briefcase with practiced efficiency. Here is the trust agreement, executed on September 15, 2018. Properly notarized, witnessed, and filed. Here are the 10 property deeds, all showing transfer from Hiroshi Nakamura to the Nakamura Family Trust with Yuki as sole trustee and beneficiary. She laid document after document on the table. County stamps, notary seals, transfer dates all showing September 2018. The trust is irrevocable, Catherine continued. Yuki has been the legal owner of all 10 properties for over 6 years. Ethan has not been managing Hiroshi's properties. He's been managing Yuki's properties. The silence was absolute. Then Ethan found his voice. This is fraud. She manipulated Gramp. He was old, confused. Mr. Nakamura was evaluated by 2 independent physicians before executing the trust, Catherine interrupted coldly. Both certified him as fully competent. Any claim of diminished capacity or undue influence will fail. David opened his briefcase. My name is David Chen. I'm a forensic accountant. I've been conducting an investigation into the financial management of these properties since October 2018. He pulled out a massive bound report, easily 300 pages. This investigation has documented systematic theft of rental income over a period of 76 months. The word theft hit like a physical blow. Mom gasped. Dad's face went white. Ethan looked like he might throw up. David began laying out evidence. Bank statements, spreadsheets, timeline analyses. The scheme was straightforward, David said, his voice clinical and damning. Ethan collected full rent from all 10 properties, amounts ranging from $18,500 per month in 2018 to $22,000 per month in 2024. However, he consistently deposited only a portion into the property account. He laid out comparison sheets showing rent collected versus rent deposited. The missing funds, averaging $6,000 to $7,000 per month, were deposited into Ethan's personal checking account within 24 to 48 hours of collecting rent from tenants. More evidence hit the table. Highlighted bank statements showing deposits into Ethan's account that perfectly matched missing rent payments. We interviewed all current and former tenants, David continued. They confirmed paying full rent to Ethan every month. Here are signed affidavits from 18 tenants documenting rental amounts and payment dates. Page after page of tenant statements, all of them confirming they'd paid full rent, all of them contradicting Ethan's deposits. Total documented theft over 76 months, $427,000. The number hung in the air like a guillotine blade. That's not true, Ethan shouted, jumping to his feet. I was being paid to manage the properties. That money was my salary. Your salary was $2,500 per month, David said calmly. Paid separately and documented. The additional $6,000 to $7,000 monthly was not authorized compensation. It was theft. Catherine pulled out more documents. Here are examples of additional fraudulent activities. Fake invoices for repairs that never occurred. This invoice claims $8,500 for roof replacement on the Tempe property. We contacted the roofing company. They have no record of any such work. More fake invoices hit the table. Plumbing repairs that never happened. HVAC replacements that were never performed. Landscaping services that didn't exist. Ethan also pocketed security deposits that should have been held in escrow, David added. Over 6 years, approximately $34,000 in security deposits were never properly accounted for. The evidence kept mounting. Undeniable. Overwhelming. Meticulously documented. And here, David said, pulling out a final set of documents, are Ethan's personal expenses immediately following large theft deposits. A $68,000 truck purchase 2 days after collecting $15,000 in rent. A $12,000 payment for a Vegas trip 3 days after pocketing $8,000 in missing rent. A $6,500 Rolex purchase matching stolen funds from June 2023. He laid out timeline after timeline showing the direct correlation between stolen money and luxury purchases. Ethan had collapsed back into his chair, his face sheet white. Mom was crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. This is enough evidence, Catherine said, her voice hard, to pursue criminal charges for embezzlement, fraud, theft, and forgery. We've already briefed the Maricopa County District Attorney's Office. They're prepared to file charges if Yuki chooses to prosecute. All eyes turned to me. I looked at Ethan, my brother, who'd been the favorite son our entire lives. Who'd received every advantage, every benefit of the doubt, every excuse for his failures. Who'd spent 6 years stealing from me while I documented every crime. How could you? I asked quietly. These were Grandpa's life's work. He built this with his own hands. I needed the money, Ethan shouted, desperation replacing defiance. Do you know how expensive it is to maintain an image? The truck, the apartment, keeping up with my friends. So you stole $427,000 from your own grandfather? I interrupted, my voice sharp now. You stole from an 80-year-old man who trusted you. He wasn't going to miss it. Ethan protested. There was plenty of rental income. I just took what I needed. You took what you wanted, I corrected. There's a difference. And it wasn't Grandpa's money you stole. It was mine. The properties have been mine for 6 years. That truth seemed to hit Ethan hardest. His face crumpled. Why didn't you stop me? He asked, his voice breaking. If you owned the properties, why did you let me keep managing them? Because Grandpa wanted to see how far you'd go, I said. He wanted documentation of exactly who you are. And now we have it. 76 months of evidence showing you're a thief. I stood up. You have 48 hours to sign a confession and restitution agreement. If you refuse, we file criminal charges Monday morning. Catherine pulled out a document and slid it across the table to Ethan. This acknowledges the theft and establishes a payment plan. Given the amount, you'll be paying $3,000 per month for the next 12 years. Ethan stared at the document like it was a death sentence. Mom found her voice, shrill and desperate. You can't do this to your own brother. He made mistakes, but family forgives. He made $427,000 worth of mistakes. I interrupted. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. I looked at Mom and Dad. For 6 years, you've treated Ethan like the golden child while barely acknowledging I exist. He got the praise, the support, the assumption of competence. I got ignored. But I was the one Grandpa trusted. I was the one who actually deserved it. And I was the one who spent 6 years documenting every crime while Ethan stole, and you all celebrated him. Dad finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Your grandfather did this? He knew. He knew everything, I said. He's the one who hired David to investigate. He's the one who wanted complete documentation. He wanted you all to see the truth about your favorite son. Grandpa stood up slowly, using his cane. He looked at Ethan with an expression I'd never seen on his face, pure disgust. In Japan, we have a saying, Grandpa said in Japanese, then translated, the nail that stands up gets hammered down. But in America, I learned different. Here, the person who works hard and shows integrity gets rewarded, not the person who is loud and takes what isn't his. He looked at Mom and Dad. I gave Yuki my properties because she earned them. She showed up. She kept honest books. She never asked for special treatment. Ethan, He shook his head. Ethan is a thief who shames our family name. The words, delivered in Grandpa's quiet, firm voice, were more devastating than any of the evidence. I picked up my purse. Catherine and David closed their briefcases. 48 hours, I repeated to Ethan. Sign the confession or face prosecution. And then I walked out, leaving my family in ruins behind me. I drove straight to one of my properties, the house on Indian School Road, and sat in the driveway for an hour, processing everything. My phone erupted with calls and texts. I turned it off. Catherine texted from her car. The evidence is ironclad. He'll sign. Grandpa texted. You did well. I'm proud. That message made me cry. Proud. Grandpa was proud of me. Over the next week, the family disintegrated. Ethan signed the confession Friday afternoon. He didn't have a choice. The alternative was prison. The restitution agreement required $3,000 monthly payments, which would barely dent the total but gave me legal recourse if he ever tried to claim he'd been wronged. His truck was repossessed when he missed the first payment. His landlord evicted him for non-payment. He moved back in with Mom and Dad at age 30, his entire life built on stolen money collapsing. Mom blamed me. Long voicemails about destroying the family, about being vindictive, about choosing money over blood. I didn't respond. Dad tried a different approach, guilt. Your brother made mistakes, but he's still your brother. Can't you show mercy? I showed mercy by not pressing charges, I replied. He stole $427,000. In most families, that would mean prison. What I did do was take full public control of my properties. I fired Ethan, obviously, and hired a professional property management company. I changed locks, updated tenant records, sent official notices about the ownership change. And I kept building. I sold one property for $380,000 and used the proceeds to buy a small commercial building in downtown Phoenix. I renovated 3 more residential units. I raised rents to market rates. The portfolio grew to $3.9 million. Monthly income increased to $24,000. 6 months later, my younger sister Maya called. She was applying to colleges and wanted advice. I saw what you did, she said quietly, with the properties with Ethan. Everyone says you were cruel, but I think you were right. We talked for 2 hours. About family dynamics, about being invisible, about building your own success separate from family expectations. Can I come work for you this summer? She asked. Learn about property management and real estate? Absolutely, I said and meant it. For years after that devastating family dinner, I stood in my new office, a suite I'd built out in my downtown commercial property. Nakamura Property Management now handled my 9 residential properties. I'd sold one and bought commercial instead, plus properties for 6 other small investors who'd hired me based on my reputation. The original portfolio was worth $4.4 million. Monthly rental income, $27,000. Annual net income, $245,000. But more than the money, I'd built something real. A business with integrity. A reputation as a fair, thorough, ethical property manager. A legacy that honored what Grandpa had built instead of destroying it. Maya had graduated college and joined my company full-time. She was smart, ethical, and becoming an excellent property manager. Everything Ethan could have been if he'd chosen integrity over entitlement. My relationship with Mom and Dad remained fractured. We were civil at necessary family events, Grandpa's birthday, Maya's graduation, but the warmth was gone. They'd chosen to defend Ethan's theft rather than acknowledge my 6 years of patient integrity. Ethan had gotten a job in sales, nothing to do with real estate, which his confession prevented. He was rebuilding his life slowly, though we rarely spoke. The brother I'd once looked up to was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd stolen from family. But Grandpa had lived to see justice done. He'd passed away peacefully 2 years after that confrontation, knowing his legacy was in safe hands. At his funeral, I'd given the eulogy. About integrity, about hard work, about building something that lasts. About choosing the right person to carry forward a legacy, not just the expected person. Last week, a young woman approached me at a real estate conference. "Are you Yuki Nakamura?" she asked. "Yes. I heard about what happened with your brother. About the theft and the documentation and the confrontation." She paused. "My uncle is managing my grandmother's properties, and I think he's stealing. Would you talk to me about how you proved it?" We sat for 3 hours. I walked her through the investigation process, the importance of documentation, the forensic accounting techniques. I gave her Catherine's contact information. "Family theft is more common than people think," I told her. "And it's hardest to expose because people don't want to believe their loved ones would steal. But truth matters more than comfort." As she left, grateful and determined, I thought about that family dinner 4 years ago. About Ethan's confident announcement that the properties were rightfully his. About Catherine and David walking in with evidence that destroyed his lies. I didn't regret any of it. Because Grandpa had taught me the most important lesson. Integrity isn't just refusing to steal. It's having the courage to expose theft even when the thief is someone you love. The $4.4 million portfolio was proof I'd learned that lesson well. But the real inheritance was knowing I'd honored Grandpa's legacy, not by simply owning what he'd built, but by protecting it with the same integrity he'd shown throughout his life. That was worth more than any amount of money.